Hey folks, and welcome back. I'm sitting here getting ready to record room 4 of our 5-room dollar store dungeon. Now, this room is one of the ones I'm pretty excited about. It's actually this room in combination with the room we built last time that made me initially settle on this as the idea and theme for this dungeon. But before we get into that, I do want to take a second to thank all of you for watching, for making this by far my most popular video series ever. I really appreciate it. I also really appreciate all of your comments and everyone who left a comment in the last video telling me some of their ideas for what dungeons they'd like to see built. Thank you. You guys, honestly, you killed it. Those are some fantastic ideas. They're all going in a list. I'm not sure yet exactly how I'm going to choose which one. That's going to be the hardest part. That said, if any of you watching have more ideas, dungeons you'd like to see, please leave them in the comments. I'm already excited about getting started on the next one. But first, let's finish up room 4. Okay, so this is the largest combat encounter in the dungeon. Even if your players have done everything right to make it easy on themselves, this is the big fight, so don't hold back too much. When the party steps into the next room, they find a massive magical sigil carved into the center of the room, and the spectral butler makes his appearance. Yes, that's right, the harmless ghost butler who relayed the family story in the last room now appears in the center of this one. The players notice right away that he's protected by a spell, and a successful Arcana check will tell them that the power of the spell comes from the cursed book. That's right, the Guardian Spirit is the final boss, the last remaining protector of the cursed tome. In short, the butler did it. See, he told you the family story. He told you the madness and the pain that comes with the cursed tome, and you still want it for yourself. He has to punish you. Alright, but here's the fun part. Do you remember in the last room I told you to take notes about the characters' reactions to the story, to record whether they were compassionate, sympathetic, maybe blessed the tomb or said a prayer for the dead, or if they did what a lot of players do and make fun of the unfortunate victims, tried to poke levity into a heavy situation, or even desecrated the tomb or attacked the butler himself. Well, this is where that pays off. You see, the butler has the capacity to make this fight really easy or really hard. See, if your player characters were sweet and kind, if they did something like, say a prayer for the dead or put some kind of blessing on the tomb, he's not going to throw everything he's got at them. But if they did what a lot of player characters will do and they were jerks, or they poked fun at the family, or tried to bring levity into the dark situation, or desecrated the tomb, if they attacked the butler himself, he's going to throw the book at them. Not literally he's going to hold on to the book, but he's going to use everything he's got, is what I'm saying. Now, the goal here for the player characters should not be to clear the whole room. You see, the butler, his spell, it gives him 3 turns of complete immunity from damage, 2 turns of resistance, and then after that, the spell fades away. In the meantime, every single turn, he's going to summon more and more enemies. What the player characters have to do, if they can't talk him down, is survive the initial waves of enemies, wait out the spell, and take out the butler himself. Alright, let's get building. For this large combat encounter, I want the players to feel harried and hemmed in by enemies. I also want to make this room look a little more elaborate and magical than the others. Now, this self-adhesive floor tile gives the perfect base for that. It's large, but not so large that I can't make the players feel trapped, and the pattern on it looks not entirely dissimilar in style to the fleur-de-lis stencil I've been using throughout. So I put this on a piece of foam board with ample glue, even though it's self-adhering, and then just cut around it. That's going to be the base for this room. This next piece was, I'm not sure, actually, some kind of hanging decoration. I don't know what this thing is supposed to be exactly, but I knew what I was going to turn it into. All of the rope and beads come off of it, and this is going to be the ritual circle that the guardian spirit stands on top of and casts his spells from. Once everything is removed, it just gets glued down in the center of the room with tacky glue. While I've got the glue out, it's time to fix another little problem too. Because I'm using the floor tile for the base of the room, I can't give it the usual tinfoil ball stone texture. So I'm going to go back to the stones and sand that we used in the very first room of the dungeon and just put a few little piles here and there in the corners of the room or other random spots. Now, while this is supposed to be the most elaborately carved room of the family tomb, it's also still very old and crumbling, and giving it a bit of texture helps to sell that and helps it to fit in with the other rooms that we've already made. Once I'm happy with the amount of sand and grit, I go ahead and cover everything in black Mod Podge. Now, this wasn't really enough to give a solid base coat color over that neon white, so I did come back in after with some black paint and give it that solid coat once it was completely dry. But with all of the sand and grit that's on here, I did want to give it an extra layer of sealant just to make sure everything was completely glued down. While that's drying, I'm going to move ahead and work on the spell effect for the Guardian Spirit. I want a physical representation of the spell, an actual barrier that indicates that he has his damage reduction up and working. Why? Well, because it gives a really satisfying moment for your players when you lift that barrier away and they realize he's vulnerable. To make the spell effect, I'm using the clear plastic dome from a make-your-own snow globe. To get the cheap clear plastic ready to accept paint, I sprayed it with a matte varnish first. That way, it retains its translucency. To give it a little bit more excitement in its appearance, though, I start with a little dry brushing. First, a light blue around the top and bottom thirds of the globe, and then, when that's dry, an off-white at the very peak and very base. It's sort of a graduated misty effect. Now with the Mod Podge and base coat dry on the dungeon floor tile, it's time to get into the paint job. Now you know where this is going since it has to blend with the rest of the dungeon we've already made. It's a medium gray base coat, a light gray dry brush, and a black wash. I know, super exciting, but we're in the depths of the dungeon, so changing it now doesn't make a lot of sense. I would like to take a second here though to thank you all for watching. Please, if you've enjoyed the series, hit the like button, consider subscribing or sharing the video with your friends. It's easy and free for you guys, and it makes a huge difference for the channel. If you'd like to go further in your support, you could join my amazing Patreon supporters. Thank you so much to all of you. It's not only a big help in funding things like this dungeon build, it's also just great motivation to keep going. And hey, if any of you out there have ideas for dungeon themes you would like to see tackled in a format like this, a long-form dungeon build, drop them in the comments. You absolutely killed it last time, and I would love to see more. The black wash is going to take a little while to dry, so I'm going to use that time to put some finishing touches on the spell effect and the ritual circle. I painted the ritual circle copper and used the same paint that I did in the last room for the statues and platforms. That way it's all visually uniform. And to tie the magic of the spell effect in with the dungeon's visual themes, I'm going to go back to the cotton buds to dress it up a little. It's really easy. I just pull a few apart and use tacky glue to cover up the bottom of the snow globe, and I leave enough of the cotton kind of overflowing that it can drape over the ritual circle just a little bit. And finally, it's back to the beads that I used in the very first room on the outside of the mausoleum to tie things together again and to add just a little flash to the ritual circle. And finally, that brings us to here we go. As a stage for the big fight, I'm really happy with this. I love how the ritual circle and spell effect turned out, and I love how easy it was to make it look that way. The room is tight and cramped, and as it fills up with more enemies each turn, your players are quickly going to feel pressured. It brings a different element to the fight and requires different tactics than the earlier combat encounter, which I love. If you're going to have multiple combat encounters per dungeon, which I think you should, then those encounters should really encourage different solutions and different tactics, and we definitely achieve that here. We give our magic characters time to shine with not only AoE effects, but also arcana checks to find out about the Guardian Spirit's protective spell, and there's also room for melee characters to have fun smashing through big hordes of lesser enemies, or taking on mid-bosses depending on how you'd like to run it. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and please come back and check out the next video where we'll wrap up this 5-room dungeon. After that, I think I'm going to jump into some Christmas village house conversions for the holiday season, and I've hopefully got 1 or 2 other big surprises coming up too. Thank you for watching. There's more on the way, and I'll see you on the next video.